Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. A podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Dr. Stephanie Oxman. She's the owner of Oxman Foot and Ankle in Chicago, Illinois. So, Stephanie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's kind of fun to be on this side of the microphone instead of the interviewer. I
I
get
know
to do.
you do have a podcast called She's a DPM podcast, which we will get to shortly because I do want to talk about that because it's quite interesting. And I've worked out now it's easier to say, how are you doing today? Because normally when I say, how are you doing this morning, it's evening
Yeah.
for you. And if I'm doing the
Yes.
recording at night, it's daytime. So I'm going to stick with, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're in the new year. I'm excited for 2023 and what's all to come. So I'm feeling rejuvenated after a good weekend away and ready
Yeah.
to rock.
Do you ever, I've been doing this for a number of years now. I pick a word for the year that I focus on. And I have a brain book. So I have a book each year. I start a new book, and in that brain book, I record any ideas, thoughts. If I am listening to another podcast, I take notes. If I'm at a lecture, that becomes my brain book. But on the first page of the brain book, I record my word for the year. Have
I
you ever thought
really
about
like
doing that?
so I usually the beginning of the year, January 1st, I usually like sit down and like write down, my list of goals, what I liked about last year, what I could have done better the next year,
Yeah.
everything like down to like a vision board. And I like to journal as well. That's funny that you said that because like right next to me right here is my uh it's like a dry erase like notebook that I can write everything down. But I decided to do something a little differently this year and like not do that, but I still have
Oh,
a lot of ambitions, but give myself grace. So I guess grace would be my word of the year.
word
So
for
we'll
the year.
see.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
last year was discovery. That was my word for the year. I wanted to just discover and learn different things. This year, I'm using a word that I used back in 2015, I think it was, and it was abundance. And that year that I used the word abundance as my focus for the year, and it was all about there is no scarcity, everything is abundance. And I had another friend who I was telling him, he said, okay, that's going to be my word for the year too. We're going to go with abundance. Both of us had record years that year with our podiatry businesses.
That's amazing. That's an excellent word too. And
Yeah.
I
So,
truly believe that as well. There's only abundance.
yeah, there is no scarcity. And if you have a scarcity mindset, then you're always, I don't know, I think you have a negative mindset when you think there is scarcity. There's only so many patients. Whereas I think, no, there's an abundance of patients. And it was funny, my friend, I said to him, he asked me what my word for the year was. I said, I'm going back with abundance again. And he said,
I liked 2015.
yeah. He said, maybe we should get matching tattoos. I said, maybe we shouldn't. I said, maybe you should get it. And then I can just look at yours every now and then.
Yeah, you let me know how it goes and then I'll think about it.
Yeah, yeah. You can tell me how it felt because I don't want one. So anyway, I'm glad you like that idea. And it's funny that different podiatrists I know who are quite successful in many areas, and I'm measuring success by money, but they all have something a little bit quirky, whether it's words of the year, brain books, goal setting things, vision journals. Do you know Peter Wishney at all?
Know the name sounds very familiar, but I have not ever
Okay.
met him.
He is reach out to him through LinkedIn. He is a really, really nice guy to know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll have to do that. Or I'll
And
have
Peter,
now that we're friends, connect me.
yes. Okay, so let's get into the Stephanie Oxman story. Always interested to know what got you into podiatry in the first place.
Oh, such a great question. And it's really interesting because a lot of people may have this story, right? From a young age, I always knew that I wanted to get into the health, like healthcare or medical profession. So, I shadowed everything underneath the sun, like everything from PT, PA. I spent like a summer with an optometrist. I thought that
Okay.
was maybe going to be it. And then I was like, this is the 1, 2, 1, 2. It's not for me. But I then discovered podiatry and everything kind of clicked. Like I am kind of a intuitional person. Like
How did you
I feel that way.
discover? How did you discover podiatry? What was the How did you how did podiatry cross your path?
It's really so very funny because then when you do find it, podiatry, you
Yeah.
realize that your path has crossed before. So I played a lot of sports growing up. I played 3 year-round sports. So like my knees and my ankles, my feet really got beat up. So like I saw a podiatrist first when I was 16, had gait analysis and orthotics made, but that was kind of like, okay, great. And then in college, I joined a pre-med club. First profession that was presented to us was podiatry. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, great. And it kind of just kept going through my college years. And then it was my senior year when I really got serious about it and found actually videos on YouTube, because YouTube was very up and coming on these days, and saw like the vast array, like between like surgery, clinical wound care, sports medicine. And I was like, okay, well, I'm feeling a connection to this career choice. And I actually took a year off before attending podiatry school to make sure that it was a good fit. So I would shadow different podiatrists, look more into the field. But really my background was that I really wanted to help people. I have a lot of diabetics in my family, so that kind of played a role, but also my own personal injuries with my everything from feet, ankles to knees really played a big part in it. And
So it was something that you really like, you just kept having small little interactions with podiatry, and so the interest just built over a period of time, but in the background, you always knew health was something you were going to go into.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm glad it finally clicked. It just
What clicked?
Life
What was
kept throwing it at to me.
Yeah. So was there a certain decision that you went, bloody, this is it. This is definitely what I want to do because?
Yes. I feel like it was one of the podiatric surgeons that I shadowed from my hometown in St. Louis. And he just had the best bedside manner and had these great relationships with his patients, which is something that I want. I wanted to connect with my patients, but I also wanted to have that surgical side.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was like, okay, there's going to be enough diversity in this field that like every day something new may present itself. And that's something that I needed. So that kind of was the clicking factor that I was like, I can do this. And I'm excited about it.
I think it's good though. One thing I really enjoyed about podiatry from the get-go was you could talk while you work. You actually you have a conversation. You get to know the patients, who they are, and the more they come in, the more you get to know them over the years. Whereas my brother's a dentist.
No talking.
He talks more than me, and I've been in there when he's had 15 instruments in my mouth, and next thing he's asking me questions.
And you're like, what do you expect from me right now?
But they understand. They still actually understand the conversation.
That's funny.
I always remember seeing a cartoon. It was a group of dentists all standing around this patient, all these instruments in there, and there's about 3 or 4 dentists standing there, and one of them pulls out a tennis ball and he says, just out of curiosity, I'm just going to see if we can fit this in there.
That's pretty good. And I relate to that. Now I'm thinking my dentist always tries to talk to me, and I'm like, they
don't ask you a question until there's at least a probe and something else in your mouth. Yeah. And I've never been bitten by a foot, which is great.
To date. Yeah, that's good. There's still time.
Yeah, have been kicked though. So with part of when I was on your website, one of the things that said that you really enjoy is lower limb peripheral nerve pain and injuries. So what is it about that particular area of podiatry that sort of got you excited?
I really got more interest in it after hearing actually my fellowship director. This was when I was in residency still. I wasn't planning on doing a fellowship or anything. I was like, I'm ready. I want to get out there. I want to start helping people. And I heard him at a conference talk about what he's doing with peripheral nerves and helping people with like chronic pain of the foot and ankle, or even help restore motor functions. And my eyes lit up. And just like how you kind of have this feeling inside of your like path, I was like, I have to learn this. I'm so interested in this. So that pushed me to doing the fellowship. And what I love about it is because lots of times these patients get bounced around, sadly, right? They're living in pain. That pain is maybe not like an antalgic gait. it is sometimes invisible, but it's still there. And being able to help address that, or helping them at least get some answers, that's really rewarding, and like just another aspect that you're able to help patients that maybe haven't been able to receive that help prior. So that's like my big passion, what I'm focusing on in my private practice right now.
Okay, so you're doing all the other aspects of
Oh, yeah.
podiatry as well, but this is the area that you sort of,
My heart
yeah,
lights up. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've had a lot of podiatrists that come on and they might like, say, for example, warts. They just love everything about
Yeah.
warts. So they still run a normal practice, but their interest lies in a particular area. And I think it's great. And I think more podiatrists should have interests in a small aspect of podiatry that they can get really, really good at and become not so much the best in the world at it, but more knowledgeable than the average podiatrist, because then when they do that, they can then teach that skill to more podiatrists coming through.
Yes. Also, if there's like somebody I'm in Chicago, so we know that there's a school, there's a lot of residencies. So there's a lot of podiatrists in our area. And I, by having that additional training or knowledge, or like that, the skill set, I'm also helping my fellow podiatrists that like maybe are wanting to learn this avenue or want their patients to be seen by me. And that's what same. If somebody's like an expert in warts, please, like I will refer them to you as well, because I want them to be in the best hands as well. So it's a kind of another cool way to network with your community as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because I think if every podiatrist picked an area that they really enjoyed and they became really good at it, and this comes back to the whole word we said at the beginning, abundance.
Yes.
It's because if you think there's an abundance amount of patients, there is no scarcity of patients, and you can feel comfortable referring one of your patients to somebody else who has a better skill in a particular area and not feel that, oh, I'm going to lose that patient.
Mm-hmm.
Then everyone's going to be better off. The other podiatrists will be better off because you're referring them stuff that they really enjoy and they're better than you at, but your patient will come back because they'd appreciate the referral.
Yeah, and I've actually found that to be the truth in the last 2 years. Like I have good networking resources, and same, like I'll send them something that I'm like, I have a perfect person for you. And they do come back. So it is abundance.
Abundance. This episode could just be called Abundance.
Yeah, perfect.
I think we might run with that. I'm sure I have not used the word abundance yet in a title. So
here it is.
Here it is. And one of the things, because it's funny that we got onto this, because like I said, I never script any of what we're going to talk about. We don't usually have a whole pile of talking points, as people probably figured out when we're talking. Sometimes we just go down some really weird paths and we eventually come back. But I do usually ask for some talking points. And one of the talking points you mentioned was expanding niches in our field, which we sort of got onto already without really talking about niches.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a good entryway there. That is a perfect one. And that's what I do. I think podiatry, while we're foot and ankle, lower limb, there are so many subspecialties in our field that are just so exciting that people need to know about. And that, just like we were talking, if you're able to have like a niche or subspecialize and be, a little better like in one area than the other, I think abundance will come, and like it's gonna open your doors even more to helping people.
Well, it's no different. If you had a pediatric surgeon in your area that all they did was hammer toes.
Yeah.
You say that's all they did. They were totally set up. We are the hammer toe experts. And if hammer toes wasn't something that you go, take it or leave it, I don't really care whether they're doing it, and you referred your patients to them, but then in return you said, oh, if you get anyone with peripheral nerve pain, please send them my way, because they might be thinking, I don't like actually doing that. This is the power of the networking, creating niches, and having that abundance mindset.
Yeah. And I also think helping grow our field and like realizing that, we can tackle a lot more, and just expanding knowledge and what our patient population knows that we can do too. Then, so
have you ever sat there and thought about all the different niches in podiatry, like the different areas that people could go into? rattle a few off
Yeah.
in case someone's listening to this going,
Okay.
no, I can't think of any.
Yeah, like no, I got them. So like sports medicine, someone
Yes.
like a group that just purely does sports medicine, trauma, revision, reconstructive surgeries. So like, yeah, I tend to do that as well. I want to be that person in my area for when things kind of went wrong. That was a lot of my
And so like
training.
fixing up other people's mistakes.
Yeah, I find that exciting as well.
I suppose that way,
but
if you're fixing up somebody else's mistakes and it doesn't work out, you go, well, it was already stuffed.
yeah, I tried.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a mechanic trying to fix an old car. Oh, the engine was already ruined. Yeah, we can only do so much.
Yeah, we did. Sorry, we tried. Dermatology. Like
Yes,
people
there's a
make
few
whole
people
career-
that are doing that already, which I think is great. And we need more.
Yes. I just recently spoke to people that are just doing like nano arthroscopy for like certain foot and ankle pathologies. One of the coolest ones I think is forensics. Very
Oh, yes.
small field, but I'm intrigued by it because that's just so interesting. But like, if you have, I have been thinking about this because I want to help people like build a niche or like a subspecialty. What is
Yeah.
the thing that you research the most? Like, what's the thing like when you get like a literature article or magazine in? What do you tend to focus on reading? Because we all have something that we like to read,
Yeah.
right? Like I tend to then like I subconsciously always just go research reconstruction or peripheral nerve. So like I know that's clearly something I'm willing to put in the time. So like what are you looking at to like build your skill set? And like that's probably something that you should dive into.
That is a really good way of looking at it, because it'd be the same thing. You get a podiatry magazine plonks on your desk and there's 20 articles in there. Which is the article you gravitate to first every single time?
Yeah. Is it bunions? Then focus on that and build your practice around that, because that's going to keep you not motivated, but passionate, right? If that's already something that you like to do, then just build on that. Be the best in that thing. And that's okay to be a subspecialized in our field. I
just love the way you view that. Like the way of actually doing that, because I think nearly every podiatrist listening to this would have to, if they get a magazine that's 20 articles and they are really super keen about reading all 20, they have mental issues.
Yeah, like I'm going to bypass a lot.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking every 20 topic, all 20 topics are of interest to me would be really odd. Even if you had to go, okay, I love all 20. But if you had to put them in order of how you would want to read them, still there would be one that should be at the top, or at least one or two.
Yeah. What's the article you're reading past the abstract? Sorry, what was that? Hold on. It's a little muffled.
I'm just going to pause the recording. Okay, we're all happening again now.
Perfect.
A bit of a technical glitch there, but that is the world of podcasting. And you're a podcaster, so you understand.
I totally understand. Half the time I'm fearful that I didn't press the record button. So.
Oh, geez. I've only ever done that. I don't think I've ever done it on a podcast. But when I do coaching calls, because I record the coaching call and then give them the audio so they can listen back to it afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Then occasionally I've gone, did you hear the big bang then? Did you hear the big bang?
No, it was like a little thud.
A little thud? It was a big bang from my end. That was just, that's what happens when people are at home.
Hi, that's yeah, my dog's like right here. And I'm like, just be calm.
Well, normally the dog's under the desk, but not at the moment. So where were we? Okay, so we had a technical issue.
That's yes. Life. I was saying like for building a niche, like what's the article you read past the abstract that you're like, oh, I'm intrigued. I'm going to read it all, not just the abstract. So that's like a tip that I've been telling people how to find like it's like probably right in front of you. Like you have a passion that you don't realize that you could market specifically just for building like a subspecialty or niche.
Yeah. When I do my marketing workshops, which I'm going to resume again this year, going to do them live and not just online, as I have done the last couple of years for some unexpected reason. And yes, with the live workshops, but a lot of the times I'll say to people, write down, what do you love most in podiatry? And get them to really think about, what do you love the most? And they might write down a couple of parts of podiatry. I say, what do you like the least in podiatry? Because there's always things that people don't like. Like, if you've ever listened to a number of episodes, most people know I don't like ulcers. If something has pus dripping out of it, it's infected, if it smells, I will lose my breakfast. I just
It's not for you.
Not for me. Definitely not for me. So then when I get them to do that, say, what do you love most? What do you like least? Then at the moment, what's your percentage do you spend in that time of what you love doing? And what percentage of time do you spend in what you don't like doing? And it's surprising when some people go, wow, I spend a lot of time in the areas of podiatry I don't like. And then they'll say, so we look at your last 3 or 4 different marketing pieces that you put together. Who were you talking to? The groups of people that you love treating, or the problems you like treating, or were you marketing towards the things you don't like? And when they start looking at it, they go, oh, yeah, I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. And they keep coming through your door, right? So
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because some people, this guy, Patrick McFadden. No, yeah, it was Patrick McFadden. And he said, all marketing does is amplify what you've already got.
That's a great quote.
Unless you change your marketing.
Hey, it's the new year. That's a great motivation for me to switch it up this year too.
Well, actually, the plan is this year, when we do the marketing workshops, our plan is we're going to do one in Chicago this year.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, but it's going to be in October. Can't give any other information out other than that. But yeah, people, you heard it here first. There will be a marketing workshop in Chicago in October 2023. More details to come. And it's just a coincidence you happen to be on here and you're from Chicago.
Yeah. I'm excited. Hopefully I'm in town that weekend.
And I was only talking to the person I'm going to be doing it with, big Jim McDonald. And I was only talking about 5 minutes ago about it before we press record here. So yeah, it was a coincidence.
It's a good coincidence, little sneak peek.
But I do think if people put those things together, what you said about what will you read first, and then also what I said about what do you love most, that really has to push them into the area of podiatry. That is, I think if you can keep excited about podiatry, you will stay in the profession far longer than if you're doing stuff you don't like and you get bored.
Yes. Like if you're in burnout, start building a niche. And I have a feeling that hopefully it'll kind of spark a new fire for you.
Yeah. So I liked orthotics. I just found from the day I started podiatry, when I first knew what an orthotic was, what it could do, how you made them, because I had never had any inkling that I was going to end up in health. I thought I was going to end up in the arty-farty world somewhere.
I think that too, yeah.
In the creative world, which is what I'm doing now. But orthotics, just the way how they worked and what they could do for people and the changes they could make, that got me excited. And I would read as much as I could on that.
Well, that kind of is a form of artistry.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Your medium is orthotics.
Well, it is. It's the final product. So back when I graduated in 1988, which was a while ago. When were you born?
Oh, 89.
Okay. So when you were 1 and I was working.
Yeah.
And back then it was a plaster cast. Everything was made by hand, all the modifications. And I just absolutely loved it. I would finish work and I couldn't wait to have a lab set up. Couldn't wait to get in the garage and just start making these things. Or eventually it was the back office of the clinic. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and I'm so glad. It's so great to hear when people find that their passion too, because I mean you've had a very successful career with it too.
Yeah, well, and then eventually it moved on to we did make them using milling, doing scans, using a milling machine, but you still had to finish them off. You still had to finish off you still had to fit it into a shoe. You still had to make modifications, things that a computer or milling machine cannot do. So I still all it meant is I could do more in a shorter period of time.
Oh, see, and that's something I see that's something that you love, and that's something that I'm like, you know,
You don't
I'm
like
okay.
it? Oh,
I
not that you don't
do,
like it.
but
Oh, you enjoy
but
that
I do.
area of podiatry as well?
Uh, a little. There's more other things that I enjoy more. How about that?
Yeah. So if you and I were in the same area, same suburb, and I think this is where, and this is one of the other talking points you sort of mentioned about working together as a community is,
Yeah.
and I think that fits in with the whole abundance mindset, that if you and I were in the same town, we shouldn't be competitors. We should become friendly with each other, finding out what you like, you find out what I like, and go, there's going to be that gray area where there might be something that you like that I know I can treat, but there's going to be other things that I know you are far better at it. And it's only if we become friendly with each other and we communicate with each other, we'll actually learn that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. We're not competitors. We're colleagues. So we got to treat each other like that.
So how many podiatrists are there in your area around you?
Oh gosh. I would say in like a 5-mile square radius,
Yeah.
probably like 10 to at least 10.
Okay. And in the Chicago area?
15. Oh gosh, a lot.
What's a lot? What's your measurement of a lot?
I want to like Google it now. I didn't count.
No, don't Google it. Just a random shot. Take
Let's
a guess.
say, oh gosh, 100.
Wow.
Over
Okay. Well,
100?
we should
Yeah.
fill the marketing workshop up pretty easy.
Yeah. Well, there's like a lot of private practices, but there's group practices right in the area, a lot of hospitals. So there's like sneaky a lot of us in downtown Chicago and also the suburbs. So that's why I also think it's important to have a subspecialty and like be able to help expand your own practice by helping others like hit or help with different what am I saying? Like specialties that they're not interested in. So
yeah. So have you made an effort, like you had your own practice? So how many years have you had your own practice for now?
I started it last year. So it officially, I think, like opened October 2021. So I'm still new. I'm still a growing practice, and man, it's a lot of work, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay. And then once you opened, did you reach out to other podiatrists in your area to try and build that community?
Yes. And lots of times it's been really exciting too, because I've built friendships. So like we'll go have like business, like just brainstorming even. So like last week I like got together with a colleague and we had drinks and dinner and we talked about like, what are you doing? How are you handling this in your office? Because she also had just bought a private practice. So and we're like 2 miles, maybe a mile and a half away from each other. So while some people would think that's my competition, I'm like, no, it's like we're in the same boat. Let's help each other. And like, what are you using for marketing, or like what has not worked for you? Like, how are you hiring people? And it's been really wonderful.
Yeah. And you can really learn a lot from each other too, doing that. And even if you are in the same town and you're relatively close. Yes. But when I had my clinic here in Cairns, and there was another guy who'd opened up just before I had sold, and I'd seen him a couple of times, and I actually mentioned to him, and I said, there's no reason why you can't be friends. No. That yes, between 9 to 5, you're like, and I gave the example, I said, we should be like cage fighters. We're like MMA. We're both professionals. You put into a cage to do a particular job, and then you're competitive against each other. You don't want to kill the other person, but you need to win because that's what you're paid to do in that cage. But as soon as you step outside that cage, why can't you be friends? Why can't you catch up socially, or if you're at an event, have a beer together and don't be fearful of each other?
Yeah. And that's I think something our field is hopefully getting better at.
Yeah, I think America does it well. Like I've gone to a lot of American, like different conferences, and seen podiatrists there who are quite close to each other. and they seem to be quite supportive of each other.
I think there are a lot of great communities. Like there's always been this this saying that podiatry eats their young. I don't know if you've heard that. Yeah.
No,
and I think
no, I haven't, but I like it.
Oh, yeah, podiatry eats their young.
Well, actually, I
And
don't
think
like
that
it,
is
but
no, right.
yeah,
Not a great thing. Like, but I think that is I'm hoping that's transition out there. You still hear some horror stories, but I think that is changing, and there are a lot of great communities getting built that's not going to be the case.
I think that's all changing. An episode that came out before this one is titled How to Fix the Podiatry Profession. Well, I think that was the title. That's what it should be called, How to Fix the Podiatry Profession. And it was because I did an episode last year, Why I Left Podiatry. And the common theme from that was a lot of people, it wasn't just the workload that they did, but a lot of it was the older podiatrists eating the young. They really just chewed them up, gnawed off a leg, and sort of just left them on the roadside. And they felt so disheartened that they left. So I wanted to get podiatrists together and go, now let's talk about how we can actually fix it. And even though there was only 7 of us on there, that we're not going to solve all the problems with one podcast with 7 podiatrists, but we did have someone from the UK, America, and Australia. So it was broad. And I'm hoping that episode just sparks the conversation and gets all the associations and boards talking about it more.
Lots of times the conversation just has to be started. So that's probably an excellent episode.
Yeah. And it's not about
more conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's not about complaining about, oh, we should do this, or the association's not doing this for us, or the board's not doing that. It's really about taking responsibility for the people that have been out longer, like myself. 30-something years, been in the profession. We've seen a lot of changes. And, so, yeah, the younger people coming through, they've got a different way of thinking now. And I think we've got to embrace that and not be afraid of it. And don't feel that just because we went through something bad when we were first graduated, we shouldn't be doing that to the next generation as they come through. Yes.
Just because it happened, like, it's unfortunate if that happened to you, but don't keep passing it down.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
So the episode, it's 240, and it's How to Improve the Podiatry Profession. So it's a group one, episode 240. So if you've missed it, go back and have a listen to it. And like I said, it's only a small group, and we're really just throwing out ideas and hoping that somebody from the profession will hear that and they will then run with it, and then maybe have a bigger group meeting. Because they actually had a meeting in Australia, October last year, and the association did it. But everybody they invited to talk about how to fix up the podiatry profession was all hand-picked.
Interesting.
And when you look at the actual group who were there, not that there was like, I'm sure they got something out of it, but it was so hand-picked that I think there was a certain biased thinking involved. And having said that, the group that I invited on mine probably is exactly the same. We probably, as a group, we're all business owners, had a biased way of thinking as well. So I'm not saying mine was right and theirs was wrong. It's just, I think the more we talk about it, the better.
Yeah. And hear from multiple and a lot of different people, and everyone has a voice. So an opinion.
Get you and I on there. Gee, we'd stir them up.
Yeah. I would. Yeah.
So let's move on to, you have a podcast.
I do.
And it is called She's a DPM Podcast. What on earth made you decide that you want to do a podcast?
Oh gosh, I think a lot of,
because there's a lot of work involved.
Oh gosh, it's a lot of work. But now it's just I love it. I'm so happy that I decided to do it, and I didn't, just be like, nobody needs to hear this. So that's what I was. The podcast is on its 2nd season, so I started that also October.
So yeah, are you doing it as a season? You're not doing it week after week, 52 weeks a year?
Last year I did. I wanted to start my own practice. And I gave myself the goal of at least putting out 26 episodes, so an episode every other week. So that was the first year. And now I'm in my second year and I'm shooting for 52 episodes. So I wanted to at least know that I had the, discipline to stick with it. And I think the support that I've received has really kept me going. And that it's been really wonderful connecting with a lot of people that I never would have connected with and like built groups and communities. So I started it probably similar to how I got into podiatry. Like things just stacked up and eventually like just pushed me over the edge that I'm like, I think this would be beneficial for females in podiatry. So that's who my audience is. And it's to provide insights in and outside of the life of building like a career in podiatric medicine and surgery.
Yeah. I mentioned to someone the other day that I was having you come on the podcast. And I said, and she's got a podcast called, she's a DPM podcast. And somebody said, why would you have another podcaster? Or why would you mention another podcast on your podcast? Won't you lose listeners? No, abundance.
Yeah. And my listeners will probably hopefully listen and vice versa. Like it's all just abundance. No, that's a limited way of thinking, right? So I decided to start it just because when I looked, the thing that like tipped me was a very famous or like popular scrub company. Yeah. It was horrible. I think their marketing is some of the, like, I can't believe some of the stuff that's come out. So, and they have used other podiatrists like on social media. They've used their likeness, but they don't sponsor them. They don't like pay them. They don't acknowledge our field and anything that they do. And it's just, and then you go to other apps and things and like drop downs and like podiatry is sometimes not even mentioned as like a drop down or like not seen as a valuable profession. And I was like, we get irritated hearing that, but I was like, what am I doing to try to change this? Like, what am I personally doing? I'm just sitting here getting irritated, right? But I have a voice and I have opinions and I have a little time on my hands while I'm building my practice. So why don't I just start a conversation and start interviewing other women in our field to learn about what their unique experiences are in podiatry and outside of podiatry, because I think talking about life outside of medicine is really important too. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but I am really enjoying it and building friendships and connections as well.
Oh, that's the big thing. That when you're doing podcasting, I mentioned this off air before I press record, that as soon as you have somebody on your podcast, you then have this historical moment right there and then that has been recorded that is going to be there forever. Yes. And you have an instant bond with a guest that you actually have on. So I know, like you and I now, you've been on here. Yes, we met this once. We might talk for an hour and a bit, but you know that next year, if I was in Chicago and we caught up, straight away, you've just got this immediate connection. That's what I love about podcasting.
Yes. And I think pretty much every guest I've had on, they're like, please contact me if you have questions. So like all my listeners, like they can go contact that person and also build their networking. Yeah. So I find that just probably the best thing that's come out of the podcast is just hopefully expanding people's knowledge on our field and like also highlighting some wonderful, amazing, talented podiatrists so that especially females, my goal in this as well is just to like get more diversity in female speakers on platforms, because I think that's a push that needs to happen. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, that was the funny part. When I started this podcast, I think I was only about 20 episodes in, and I got a message from a female podiatrist. I think she was in the UK, and she was getting at me, why don't you have more? There's not enough female representation on your podcast. Yeah. And I went, I never really thought about it. So I looked at the list and I went, yeah, okay, there's probably male heavy at the start. But then I looked through all the people that said no to me. And
I know.
I'd asked as many females to come on the podcast as I did males, but the males were like beating their chest. Oh, yes, I want to come on and talk. And the women were like, oh, I don't know if people want to listen to me. And a lot more of them said no. So then I said to her, hey, why don't you come on? We can talk about this. All of a sudden it was radio silence.
You should now reach back out. You should, because now if you're doing it more and more, it's just you should be like, hey, I'm circling back and would love to have you on.
Oh, well, now if you go through a lot of my episodes, it's getting pretty close to being 50-50.
Yes.
Because
and that's what
I think more females are hearing more females on there and going, wow. And I probably get more emails from female listeners telling me how much they enjoyed both male and female guests. So, and because they've reached out, then I check out who they are and I go, oh, would you like to come on the podcast?
I'm happy. I'm great. That's great to hear. In America, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but like now, I think it's like a 55% female to male ratio in podiatry. If we're going,
I'm not sure. I think Australia was always more female. There were more females in podiatry than males, and as time went on, more males started coming into it.
It's interesting. Yeah, and then sometimes I feel bad because she's a DPM, but I am eventually going to have men on, I think.
I don't think you have to though. I think if you want to keep your podcast niched to, well, but most of it, when I first started Podiatry Legends, it was Podiatry Legends podcast is a podiatry host, and I'm only ever going to have podiatry guests. Yeah. That's sort of what it was. But then as I went on, because I had my old podcast, It's No Secret Dr. T, I missed talking to other people outside of podiatry who had really interesting stories and information that I knew podiatrists would benefit from.
Yes, like hearing outside professions and extremely valuable still, and that we can add it into our own field. I agree with that. Yeah,
but you said that you'd listen to that episode, Care Differently, with Jeff Peterson. That was episode 238. And and just what he has done in his career, and to have this business called Interstate Music, and he is not a musician at all.
That's what I found interesting. I was like, all right, that's great.
But what he is good at was logistics. He already had a business, working with Amazon. So he thought, hang on, here's a business over here that has gone broke. Can I take that, apply what I've already learned, and make it a success? And he has made it really successful. And I'm thinking, well, how can podiatrists take what they've learned from him, apply it to their podiatry business, and do exactly the same thing?
Yes. Oh, gosh, that's like the thing I think we could all hopefully work on too, is like, there's so many problems like in front of our face, right? If you can like take a simple or like a problem that a lot of people have, right, and create like a simple solution, like you're in business. But that's easier said than done. I know.
Well, on Facebook, I've got a group called the Podiatry Business Owners Club. And anyone listening to this, if you're not in the Podiatry Business Owners Club on Facebook, reach out. All you got to do is answer 3 simple questions and you're in. But on there, one of the questions is, what's your biggest frustration in podiatry? And it's surprising when you look through the list of frustrations, they might say things slightly different, but a lot of podiatrists are all suffering or all have the same frustrations.
Let me guess. Is it money?
Oh, no. Rarely does anybody say they're not making, well, a few complain they wish they were making more money, but a lot of it is just, I wish the patients understood what we did more. Other health professions don't respect what we do. And it's all based around communication. Staff are a pain in the bum. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those problems can be addressed really easily.
Yeah. I like to say podiatry has a PR problem, and we just got to work on it, right?
Yeah. But we need to do it as a group. We need to stop arguing within the profession and just accept that we're all different, that we are different. There'll be certain skills that you have that are way beyond what I know. And there might be certain things that I do.
And vice versa.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah. Me filling out an orthotic sheet, I'm like, okay. All right.
I know. And it's like, we can't all be exactly the same. I did a podcast a while back about learning biomechanics by playing guitar chords. And it was understanding that you can show someone how to play a D chord and they play a D, but just because they know how to do a D and a C, a G, and they know the basic chords. If you say to them, okay, now play me Stairway to Heaven, they're going to go, no,
Right.
I just can't do it. And that was, I did that ages ago. So then another episode that's coming that will be out prior to this one with Bart Steinhaus. This is going to be, it's episode 241. Haven't given it a title yet, but he heard that particular episode. And he, prior to doing podiatry, is a professional musician, playing the guitar, flamenco, all that sort of stuff, doing that for 20 years. And when he heard that episode, he went, wow, that finally makes sense. Yeah, biomechanics makes sense because I understand when it comes to playing a guitar, exactly the same thing. So I invited him on, so we were going to dig into that idea a little bit further.
That's really cool. That's an interesting way to go about it too.
So it's, what's funny is I'm doing the recording with him just after I finish this one with you, but I'm releasing it beforehand. It's
The podcast mystery. Yes.
The podcast mystery. Yes.
Double recording days are always fun.
So what are you hoping to take with your podcast? She's a DPM podcast. So you are aiming at making it a weekly show?
Yes, that's my goal this year. So I now, at least weekly, and then maybe I'll build on that. But I did implement something this season different than last season, where it's called She's a Future DPM. So it's like a segment within the podcast where I interview podiatry students, current podiatry students, to try to help spread awareness, like for pre-med students. So then they're like talking to people in it. Like, I graduated school, podiatry medical school in 2017. Things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
So I guess I could talk about my experiences, but why not listen to somebody that's like in it now? So, and that's been, I think really, I've gotten a lot of great feedback for that. So if you're somebody listening that wants to get in, is interested in podiatry, and I'm having some Canadian students on there soon. So really expanding it. So hopefully get more people interested in the field as well.
Yeah, well, I've got an episode that once again will come out before this one, and I've already done the recording.
I love it.
And it's with a group of final year podiatry students from Queensland University of Technology, and yeah, it's just interesting knowing that they're now going into their final year and they're going to be graduating. I wanted to see, what is your thinking at the moment? So, and one of the guys I've been connected with him for a little while now. He'd previously been on. So I do think it's interesting to think about what students are thinking. Where do they see the profession? Because at the moment, this is, to them, it's all new and exciting. Whereas you get someone crusty like me who's been around for 30 plus years, and you're looking a lot more in the past, not so much the future. Not that I'm done and dusted yet.
No. And it's not like there's always new things to keep it interesting as well, I think. Like,
are you looking for guests?
Podcast?
Yeah, starting a
podcast.
Am.
Yeah, so I am looking
if there's
for
any
guests.
female podiatrists listening to this and they're thinking, yes, I want to be on She's a DPM podcast, they can just reach out to you. What's the best way of getting hold of you?
They can directly reach me through email at Dr. Oxman, OEXEMAN @gmail.com, or Instagram, which my Instagram is at She's a DPM, or at Dr. Oxman. So that's DROEXEMAN. And I'm always looking for suggestions. I think everybody has a voice. My goal is to have that platform for women to be able to share and their unique experiences. So yeah, please feel free to contact me.
And hopefully you get inundated with requests and you go, my God, I've got to do 2 shows a week now to keep up.
That's yeah. That'd be
I find the same thing though.
Abundant. That would be great.
But sometimes I find the same thing. I'll look and I go, oh, well, I haven't even got a guest lined up for next week's episode.
Yeah.
And so then I'll reach out to a couple of people who have said yes previously, and then I'll get somebody on there. But then next thing I'll look and I go, oh, I've got guests lined up for the next 10 weeks because everyone's just booked in all around the same time.
Mhm.
So same thing with me. If anyone's got a very unique story, it doesn't even have to be unique. If you want to come on the podcast and you don't want to it's not about self-promotion. That's completely different. Please reach out to me as well. Just tf@tysonfranklin.com. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. So to wrap up, Stephanie, one final question for you. If somebody bumped into you tomorrow, what's one tip that you would give them about their career?
Let me think about this. Okay. And see, I always ask people things like this, and it's always funny getting asked yourself. I would say my best piece of advice is always get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that has a lot of different meanings, right? I didn't know how to start my own private practice. Well, I knew that I had I could find the resources. I believed in myself. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. But now every day I just get to learn something new and push forward and be able to live like my dreams. Same with the podcast, right? I didn't know how to start a podcast, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. And that's like my goal for everyone. Like, I do think everyone has a voice. Your voice is going to be like it's going to resonate with somebody versus me, right? So it's okay to be uncomfortable, but don't let it stop you from pursuing your dreams and goals. So get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I like that. It's like stretching.
Yeah. 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 Right.
It's no different to stretching. You never do a stretch and go, I just always feel so good to stretch. It feels good when you stop.
Yeah. But then you're grateful that you did it.
But to get the improvement, you've got to have that pressure on that muscle. You've got to feel that stretch. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. But once you do it long enough, then it's no longer uncomfortable. So then you stretch further. So it's just like stretching.
Yeah. Now, interviewing someone, I'm like, okay, I've done this now. Now it's time to push myself a little further and find something else that makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, geez. Sometimes some of the guests I'd get on, and they were like big names in podiatry. I must admit, I was really nervous because I'm thinking, I don't want to come across as a goose. And what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer? So fortunately, I haven't been stumped yet, but it's very nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, okay. Sometimes you're listening so intently to someone and you're like, oh gosh, right. I'm supposed to be asking them a question next. And I'm like enthralled with this story. So shoot, I gotta snap back into it.
I remember when I started my first podcast, it's no secret with Dr. T. And I listened to some of the introductions, and my first 4 episodes were pretty fine. I think episode 5, I think it was called Fish Out of Water. It was the first person I had as a guest who was a complete stranger. Was an author in America. He'd agreed to come on. And I remember doing my introduction, and as I'm going, and I can just hear my voice really starting to shut down, but I managed to get through it. Then he started talking. I was able to have a drink of water and regain myself. Once I got in the swing of it, it was fine. But the first few were nerve-wracking. And I had another guy, Chase Hughes, and he's like a real life mentalist, reads facial expressions and all that. He's asked me questions, and as I'm talking, I'm thinking, does he think I'm bullshitting? Can he tell I'm bullshitting? Am I bullshitting? I don't think I am. But does he think I am? Because do I look panicked now? And I've got all these voices going in my head while I'm actually doing the interview.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you first start out. But I hope someone's listening to this and be like, okay, they are saying this, and that's how I would feel starting out, but they didn't let it stop them. So if you're interested, start a podcast. If you want to start a private practice, if you want to be into art, start that. Anything. So don't let it stop you.
Yeah. Well, now it's no secret, the podiatry marketing podcast I do with Big Jim Mack, and this one, I've done well over 500 podcast interviews now, and I still. Oh no, I do it. It's not uncomfortable to do it, but I'm still anxious prior to every interview because I don't know what the other person is going to be like. Like you were easy because I could listen to your podcast. So I heard your voice I
You
knew what
kind
you
of got the
sounded like. I got the vibe on who you were, and you were pretty relaxed and easygoing. So I'm like, this
yeah.
is going to be a breeze. But when I get other people on that, I can't find anything. I haven't
Oh
seen them
yeah, like
speak.
you try to research and you're like, oh, we're going in this a little blind, but that's okay.
Yeah, there may be a lot of written information, but there's no videos, there's no audio. I don't know what they're going to sound like. I don't. Yeah, because some people will post photos of themselves and they're 25 years old,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and the person comes on. I go, oh yeah, no, I've got an interview with your son.
You're like, it may be time for a new headshot.
Yeah, so and like I said, so we've been doing this for ages, and it still is uncomfortable. And I think even in podiatry, I don't think it matters how long you do it for. There's always going to be aspects that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think some people go, oh, imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, just
Oh
work
yeah.
through it. Just work through it. We all have it. Everybody goes through it. Anyone that tells you they don't
Is
will,
lying.
will lie about other things as well.
Yes. Like everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
So
So Stephanie, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast. This has been fun. And
I've had a lot of fun too. Thank you.
I'd love to get you back at some stage, and we will just talk about something else because we talk really well. So that sounded terrible. We talk really well. What's that mean? What's that even mean? I tell you,
I agree though. I get what you're saying.
I edit the podcast a fair bit. The video just it all stays there. So I'll do that part again.
Perfect.
So,
No.
so Stephanie, it was great having you on the podcast, and I definitely recommend we have to get you back because it's been fun. It's been fun talking with you.
I agree. I had a lot of fun being a guest, and thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. So
yeah, and the final thing, just let people know she's a DPM podcast. Go and check it out. Have a listen, but remember, come back to this one as well. But
yeah.
It is an abundant world out there. So Stephanie and we have no fear.
Yeah, I have no fear.
No fear. There should be an abundance underneath no fear.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, Stephanie, thank you very much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.